Yo, what's up aliens? AHEE here with another tutorial. Today I want to cover my track Deviant that just came out on Play Me Records. Let me show y'all what we're working with today.
Take my sip, baseline hit, some more 8-line this. Buy me a whip, then I take my pick, then I buy me a chick, I can make my darkness in motion. It's a 16 bar from the dark of the ocean. Flow penetrates, he goes in the dark of the broken.
If you really dig this track, I'll provide a link below of where y'all can download it today. So I think this track is pretty hype. I'm pretty stoked with it. I think the really interesting thing about this track is that it's not super interesting in how it was made, which sounds pretty funny, but it's like all these things of how this track was made are just super simple and just really well put together to create a cohesive idea that's just super banging. The call and response really goes into effect here in this second section. There'll be a call between these vocals here, and then in the space of these vocals we'll see here there's a little bass sound here. That's this guy. And then there's another blank space there for another response from the vocals. So together it sounds like this.
I rep my baseline hit, some more 8-line this. I rep my baseline hit, some more 8-line this.
Yeah, I felt like that was a pretty effective call and response pattern, especially, you know, with everything else behind it. Someone's going to ask me this, who the vocalist is, and I actually do not know. I reached out to the sample pack company that made this, and they either did not know who it was or did not tell me. Super awesome vocalist. And then the female vocals at the beginning are made from a Carapack, which I think is sort of interesting thing here to note is that these vocals were actually a single line, and then I chopped them up. So if we grab, and I'll show you the original length. So here's the original sample right here.
I'm caught in your whispers. There's nothing that I could do to want to escape from you.
Yeah, so it's basically in this 8-bar section. I turned this 8-bar section into a 16-bar section of this whole thing. So how I did that is, I don't know if you notice here, but this ooh, that little ooh part is actually the last part here. Yeah, just because I felt like it needed to start out with lyrics here. So basically it's like this call and response between the original and the echo right here, which I just chopped up and copied over. There's not even any effects on this, I guess, aside from some compression and EQ. So I've cut out the low end and the high end. But I think if we check this out, the high end is going down and the volume's going down as they're both being automated. Check it out. Let's turn on these automation lanes. Check this out. Gives it that like fading into the background thing. So the back and forth between them sounds like this.
I'm caught in your whispers. There's nothing that I could
do. It just helps the listener pay attention and continue on with the beat.
I'm caught in your whispers. There's nothing that I could do.
Okay, now here's a pretty interesting mix thing. If we take out the vocals from the track, I want to show you there's a gap right there. And if we solo the vocals, you'll see them predominantly in that section.
I'm caught in your whispers. There's nothing that I could do.
So you can see the fundamentals of the vocal here are in this like 500-ish to 1,200-ish. And so here, without the vocals, let's look at it again. And you can see here there's this gap between the 500-ish and even up to 2000 here. But there's this gap here that the vocal then takes up. And I specifically did that because what we are essentially seeing here in this section is we can see the sub bass and those low mids of the Reese. Basically that sound is fading down while we can see the guitar and synths fading up right here. So if I just play the synth parts. And then if we just play the sub part. And we'll play them together. So it's about that selection of like what sound is taking up what space in the mix. And then just like when they don't combat with each other, you really don't have to do much with the mix. Like this was so easy to mix for me. So I got this drum break. I really liked it. I'm going to turn off the effects here for it. Super clean as it is. You know, I think this is, from the Meth Lab sample pack. Really great pack. So I just found a drum loop that I just really liked. I think this is originally, at a proper drum and bass tempo at 174, but I'm a weirdo, so I like doing all sorts of experimentation things, and this is actually at 160 BPM. I've been making a lot of stuff at 160. I really liked how this sounded. It's like a slower drum and bass kind of vibe, though not exactly drum and bass, but similar. It's actually a very soft sound, just like the break itself. It's not super compressed. And I wanted to get my high end up to level out with my high-low end. So you can see here, there's a bit of a volume difference here between my final sub levels and my final drum sounds without those tiny adjustments on there. So on the break, I just sort of made the drums a little punchier, made it a little bit brighter. It just brought it up just a little bit closer to the average here of the low end. And also, when we add in, especially when we add in the vocals and the effects, all of it together sort of averages out at a much higher level. See right there? That's even closer. Just so that way it's like, I didn't want to have the drums be equal to the loudness of the sub. I wanted the overall highs to be equal to the sub. I think that's sort of an interesting mixing decision or, perspective there. So like when I'm mixing, I never solo out a track and just try to mix it. Sometimes I will, but I'll always go back and try to mix it in relationship to everything else in the track. Earlier in my career, I would have just mixed one element solo by itself, but really within mixing, it's all about the contrast and how it sits with other elements. So you can't mix in a vacuum. Say that. That sounds quotable. So this is like a call, and then it's got like a little bass response here. Just that little whomp there. And I believe this is a sound that I made in Serum, and if we look at it, I'll take off the effects and we'll look at it here in Span. If we pay attention here to the correlation meter, we can see that it goes out of phase just ever so slightly at the beginning of the sound. And so I wanted to correct for that, and also I wanted to like boost it up because it's a pretty dark sound. Not much going on above 2K. I boosted all the frequencies except the low mids, and then here this with AHEE stereo control, it basically makes everything a little less wide and turns down the sides and makes it a little bit more mono. So if we play it through here again, you can see that in the correlation meter it stays in phase and sounds a little bit brighter and more present. I've mentioned this, I've gone over this in other videos, but just the fact that I have this whole routing system where I have like this pre-master that is essentially receiving the kicks and the drums, and that is its own limiter here. And then like things like the vocals are sent directly to the master, and so it's like almost like layers of cake in a way. So like not everything is just hitting the master limiter, but like they're hitting limiters and stages, and then also each one of my groups has limiters on it. I got some sidechain here on the bass, and I'm actually multi-band sidechaining. This is part of the AHEE's Ableton racks. So I'm just sidechaining the high end. I'm sidechaining the snare just to the high end, and the kick just to the low end, because I felt like that was more efficient. I didn't want my sub bass to disappear when I had a snare sound, and I didn't want my high end to disappear when I had a kick. So only took out the frequencies I really wanted. And I think that's sort of like a big difference. Like when you can up level your game in mixing, it's like making decisions based upon like you knowing why you want to do those things, rather than just like what you've heard or what you've been told, but actually thinking about mixing as like what specific frequencies do I actually want to move or shift or affect in whatever way. I think just like thinking about that in specifics really helped me up my mixing game. Now I also want to show y'all just like here in this build, I think this was a pretty cool little thing, how on the break here I've got this radio vox effect, and it's basically I'm cutting out the low end and the high end, and then I'm slowly opening them back up. And so again, that contrast goes from like narrow to big and wide. I thought that was musically interesting. Then also I like to add in all these like atmospheric sounds. Like there's this pad here made with Serum. This like steam engine. Or just steam. And then this weird sound that I made in Serum. So all together, they just sort of create like a vibe with the glass breaking and everything. It just, for this breakdown, just super vibey. Yeah, and that's just this vocal here that is pitched it down from its original. But that's actually, I think, from, yeah, it's from this pack from the singer of System of a Down. He did a pack. And then also I've put my rap vocalizer on it, so I've distorted it, put some reverb on it, this without it. With it. It's so much character. It's that drive right there. It really adds it in. By the way, if y'all haven't already gotten the AHEE's Ableton racks, I will provide a link below where I sell those. It's a great way to support my channel, and they're super awesome. I use them all the time, obviously. I think a lot of other people here are starting to use them pretty often too. Yeah, it's cool. I get to show y'all how I actually put them into practice. Oh, and then also added in this little howl right before the drop, because, you know, love that. So it creates such a vibe with the broken glass and the howl, and then just like the guy's vocals. It creates this dark, like this dark vibe that's just like super cool. Oh, I hope y'all enjoyed this. If you really dig this track, I'll provide a link below of where y'all can download it today. Thanks as always for supporting this channel. Please give it a like and a subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see y'all next week. Peace, alien.
She could take my sit, baseline hit, some more 8-line hits. Buy me a whip, then I take my pick, then I buy me a chick, I can make my darkness in motion. It's a 16 bar from the dark of the ocean. Flow penetrates, egos in the dark of the broken. Hold it, you won't let me